Moving right into our next session, we'll learn from engine shops who are successfully digitizing their engine MRO IT networks and examine the pain points and challenges they are facing along the way. Our presenter is Vivek Saxena, Managing Director of Advisory Aerospace OSC. He holds a PhD in Applied Math and Aerospace Engineering from the University of Cambridge. Please welcome Vivek Saxena to the stage.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and looking at the crowd here, it seems like you must be technology nerds here who decided to stick around at this time. So I hope it'll be a lively discussion and we'll have a good QA session following the presentation. Overall, I've got 15 minutes. I've got 6 slides. I got 3 messages. It's going to be very brief, very quick, and to the point. Okay? Just why should you listen to me? I cut my MRO teeth about 20 years ago, running the induction cell at Pratt & Whitney's Cheshire Engine Center. And having the background that I have, I was always intrigued by the lack of digital technologies that can help so many manual tasks, which were so cumbersome, not just by hourly employees, but also by managers, materials managers, supply chain people, process planners, you name it. So over the years, it has been my passion to bring technology to the shop floor. So this discussion is about technology, but as it relates to MRO shops. So that's a summary of this. Now, just to motivate you, here are some examples. If you go downstairs in the exhibition hall, you'll find at least 2 vendors there who have great proven technologies for optical inspections. Okay? And people who are in MRO shops will tell you that one of the biggest bottlenecks is at induction, where collecting inspection data, digitizing it, doing the defect analysis, finding out the scope of work, generating the task is one of the longest tasks in the whole series of operations in MRO shops. And yet, nobody has actually, very few places I've seen use of optical technologies integrated with some OCR methods of reading PDF files, connecting it to automating the whole defect analysis, doing the analytics, coming up with automated generation of task cards. It's all possible. It's not Industry 4.0. It's Industry 2.5 maybe Industry 3.0. So there's a lot of things that can be done with current technologies. And so that's one example. Another example, if you're in an MRO shop, when I talk to people, our clients, and go to the shop, and I say, well, can you tell me where is part number ABC and for a given engine model? And they say, well, it's in the shop somewhere. And we do have an ERP system, but we can't really tell because the planning and scheduling module of the ERP system doesn't quite follow what happens really in the shop. Again, a huge opportunity. People don't know where their parts are and physically where they are located. Now, that's also technology-wise fairly simple solution. If you have an ERP system, if you use RFID, if you don't, you probably should for expensive parts. If you have IoT solutions, you can integrate all of this. And even before applying RFID and IoT solutions, just extracting data from your existing systems, which may be in various places, some Excel sheets, because your production guys are maybe carrying some Excel sheets. There's maybe quality data in some Access databases. All this could be easily mined and connected, and that's what we do with our clients. So with that background, the 3 messages that I'm going to talk to you about is, number 1, technology can be used in a much more effective manner than is currently being utilized, and for it, both parties to blame. Technology vendors who have made it too esoteric, too difficult for people who execute on the shop floor to understand, making it non-intuitive. I don't want to even talk about ERP systems, right? And on the operator side, or execution of shop operation side, there is somewhat of a reluctance to say, well, we're happy with what we have. But there's a lot of things that can be done to meet your business objectives. Message number 1. Message number 2, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, bushels of low-hanging fruit. I gave you examples of 2 that can be done with today's digital technologies. Message number 3, you should think about what you have as already having a suite or a portfolio of data systems. You already have them. They may be Excel sheet. They may be things, notes written on someplace. Uh, Today, you can deal with unstructured and structured data very easily. So you have an IT portfolio. So when somebody says, I have an IT portfolio, it's not for large companies only. Everybody has IT portfolio. The question is, how effectively are you using it? Is it helping your business objectives? Or do you even recognize what you have in your portfolio, which is another problem? So that was a long introduction to my sixth slide. So my company, Advisory Aerospace, you can see OSCs in different colors because we focus on operations and supply chain, and we focus on technology solutions. So again, just to regurgitate that, there's a lot of, every conference you go to, people talk about Industry 4.0, digital solution, data analytics, big data, all that in Industry 4.0. But as I said, there's a lot of stuff in Industry 3.0 that hasn't been realized. When in 1990s, computers became part of the manufacturing system, when internet occurred, a lot of things written on the right-hand side should have been very easy and basically day-to-day activity which were going to yield good results. So for example, even robotics, it's not Industry 4.0, robotics has been there for a long time. All ERP, MES, MOM systems, well, this is when SAP and Oracle became big, not necessarily targeting MRO industry, and so there was a huge Band-Aid put on those SAP and Oracle and other manufacturing-based systems. But at that time, there were some smaller players. I know there's one exhibitor downstairs who is very deeply embedded in the MRO world. They took the opportunity, they gave what the MRO industry wanted, and now it's 20 years old. So there are a lot of new things happening there as well. Shop optimization is another example I talk about. I don't know of any ERP system that does planning and scheduling to the satisfaction of production people. Because planning and scheduling, whether you do finite or infinite capacity planning or scheduling, is basically a very naive way to do it. And once you actually do the planning and scheduling parts, moves on the shop floor, you're following the supply chain where the parts are coming in, you're trying to synchronize at the assembly floor, reality and what is on the computer diverge all the time. So a lot of stuff to be done there. So this is the kind of reactions you hear as you go in the industry, right? Say, well, I invested in ERP system, it was painful, why should I go through that again? I don't want disruptions to day-to-day activity. Things are all these IT systems are overcomplicated and overpriced, and they're right. I can't afford it anyway. Standard tools don't apply to me. My operation, I have a special operation. Actually, it's true. MRO operation is very different from manufacturing operations. So, given all that, there is no getting away from technology. There's no getting away from digital technology if you want to stay competitive. So here's a map we have developed at Advisory Aerospace where x-axis is digital maturity, y-axis is ops complexity, and there is a small algorithm behind it. So for example, for ops complexity, we consider the following factors: volatility in demand, unique job cards, multiple engine models, supply chain complexity, shared processes. The more shared processes you have, the more complex it becomes on how you schedule them, and unpredictable work content, etc. So given that, you can see that we have plotted some of the clients and past experiences with various companies. We think there's a leading airline tech ops, I'm not going to mention them, who are actually ahead of the OEMs when it comes to using digital technologies. And by the way, this is the airline tech ops that does not believe in a single system, a single ERP system. They have chosen best of the breed, bolt-on solutions for every business problem that they think is worth solving through technology. Average airline tech ops is somewhere on the left. If you are a C-class part distributor, your operations are not as complex. With relative amount of data maturity, you can actually solve your business problems. If you're a 3D printing shop, by definition, it's very high digital content in it, but the complexity is simple. You have no supply chain. Basically, you're getting tooling and you're getting powder and you're making parts, right? So it's very simple there. So you can see in this map, you can try to locate yourself where you are in terms of complexity and digital maturity. If you want, I can give you the algorithm behind this. You can plot it exactly where you lie on that plan. But the fact is that pretty much all MRO shops are going to fall in what we call the digital crisis region, the top left, where you have highly complex operations, but not enough maturity in your data systems. So when it comes to, I mentioned we're talking about data systems, and when people talk about data systems, ERP comes to mind first. And what we find is there's less and less of the attractiveness of the single ERP system solution for two reasons. One, pretty much everyone has some kind of data systems today. And as I said before, our recommendation, and people actually who look into these specific problems will tell you that if you have a system, there's no point to go to a brand new system and have 18 months of implementation, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested, your key subject matter experts tied into doing all this, and then you find you have a lot of customization to do and dashboards to build and so on. So it's probably better to go for targeted technologies or the bolt-ons. Second thing is technology is becoming obsolete much faster. When you go for an ERP system, you have tied yourself, your resources, your commitment to that system over a long period of time. Things are going to change. I mean, even if you're talking about data analytics, who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? People are talking about Google Glasses or Microsoft coming up with VR, AR, mixed reality solutions where as you're doing things, analytics get done at the same time. And it's not that far off. It's possible, right, in that short term. So we think the solution is really about finding the right solution, which is best of breed to solve your business problems. And so here's an example of, for example, what we do. You may have multiple data systems in spreadsheets, databases, factory data, IoT. You can mine all that data, put it on a factory digital model. By the way, that makes your digital twin. Again, if you're into buzzwords. But that's not important. What's important is when you have mapped your data to a factory digital model, you can run analytics to it. And now it's generalized enough that you can get answers to your problems. So, for example, if you're looking into where is my part, integration of these systems can tell you exactly where your part is. And by the way, based on analytics, it can also tell you when you'll deliver it. Here's a quote from Delta Tech Ops. A single system is not a good fit. I've sort of paraphrased it a little bit. We have a complex IT portfolio covering inventory management, supply chain, technical content, human resources training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think most of the MRO shops have IT portfolio. They just need to inventory it and understand what is being addressed, addressing the business problems and what they need to further focus on. So first thing we recommend people is actually go and unearth your IT portfolio. You do have a digital portfolio. Maybe, as I said, Excel sheets or notes or maybe pictures, videos, maybe some old ERP system, MRP system, maybe some add-ons you bought in the past. Inventory that and see. So, when you do that and you do it by function, you realize how many people are working online versus offline. It tells you where you have system maturity and where you don't, what business objectives are not being addressed, and how do you want to fill that gap. And so apply targeted technology, bolt on. There's so many things happening out there. You don't necessarily need to have a big IT department or engineering talent internally, because these bolt-on technologies are meant to go and hook on, because in today's methods, you have OpenAI system, API systems, they have SDKs that come with various ERP systems, MES systems. So all this can be bolted on. You can simply apply it and start looking at the insights that can help you run your company better. And those were my 6 slides. Questions? I'll take one on blockchain too, if anybody interested. That's how I make my living. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. That can transform aviation. So now you're expanding, you're saying aviation, now you're talking everything. On condition monitoring, things like that. Well, I think, first of all, I don't think blockchain is going to transform aviation in the near future. There's a lot of concerns. If you look at, so in fintech, there's been a lot of application of blockchain. I'll come to your answer in a minute, but just to give you a background there. So, and when it comes to aviation, what I have found is that there are ecosystems which are controlled by airlines that are working independently. So I know of one initiative with Cathay Pacific, HEICO, and some of the partners. I know another initiative between Singapore Airlines and Rolls-Royce and some of their. And the reason is there's so much transparency required to implement initially the blockchain system that all that trust and democratization of data that happens, it requires a lot of standardization and transparency of data. So I don't think the airlines are going to suddenly start sharing all that data, right? Neither would OEMs. So I don't think I'm going to see blockchain operating across aviation in my lifetime. There might be these networks where it will work. So you can have your own repair network, you can have your own partnership with leasing companies, whatever you have with OEMs and airlines you might have. Then you got to worry about the interoperability of these blockchains, and I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. So what else? So if you look at the Industry 4.0 list of technologies, right? I think that may be a good place to start. There we go. So this idea of cyber-physical system, I think that is a very powerful one, and I alluded to that in the beginning, where you have a method so today people talk about AR, VR as only a training method, right? But you could have AR, VR method where you have sort of mixed reality, where you're working it at the same time your data is being inputted and is giving you the output at the same time in the real time. So that sort of thing is potentially going to help manufacturing and MRO potentially in the next 10 years or something like that. There is the idea of integrating, let's call it the IoT. Right now, there's not that much of IoT application in the shop floor anyway. People do machine monitoring, and that's the extent of it. Or if they have a very high-value asset, they might put some kind of a health monitoring system, a sensor to measure temperatures or vibrations on that system and see the flag. But if you have truly connected factory and you integrate it with all the data systems you have, I mean, it's possible even in the next few years to have everything virtualized and virtual reality not being far from reality. And so if you can align those things together, then when the customer calls and when am I going to get this engine delivered to me, you'll give an answer and you'll actually meet that answer. So I think those are a couple of things I can see on top of my head that could make big impact in the short run.